Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and we just got 2025's biggest launch thus far being Monster Hunter Wilds. Its launch has been absolutely monstrous, as I expected. If you've been following this channel, you'll know that I'm not surprised by this whatsoever. But this is a record-breaking moment, albeit not necessarily perfect either. There are some issues that we're going to talk about today, but there is a solution for a select few people. Also, Nintendo Switch Online might not be as permanent as some people initially thought. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's just go get right into things, though, starting off with a brand new, albeit old school game announcement, Terminator 2D No Fate. Yeah, this just kind of came out of nowhere. It was revealed right around the same time as Pokemon Presents, so it's going a little bit under the radar right now, but hey, that's why you have me. So, I mean, check it out. They announced this over on Twitter and said, announcing Terminator 2D No Fate coming to PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, and PC on September 5th, 2025. Sarah, John, and the T-800 take on Skynet and the T-1000 in this officially licensed 2D side-scroller complete with classic arcade gameplay and stunning pixel art. Physical pre-orders live now. And the fact that it has a physical release, even for Xbox, which is often left out for physical releases. So, I mean, that kind of tells me that they do believe in this game. And, I mean, I think based on the trailer, it's easy to understand why. It really takes you back to the 90s with that 16-bit arcade style of gameplay. And if you grew up playing these type of games, and if you like the Terminator series, this is a super nostalgic and very good-looking throwback. I mean, it's got the art style down pat. The gameplay looks excellent. So, I mean, if you're interested, I'll drop a link below if you want that physical version. Now, we also got a potential leak for this year's Call of Duty. According to Charlie Intel and Insider Gaming, they corroborated on a report that this year's Call of Duty is still currently in development for last generation consoles. Now, they were unable to confirm if that development will proceed, but, I mean, if I was a betting man, I would, predict that it's going to be available for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Now, I've seen some people blame Nintendo because they signed a deal with Microsoft to get Call of Duty, but I don't really believe that's the reason at all. It's more likely that this is because there's a large user base that still plays Call of Duty on the Xbox One and on the PlayStation 4. I mean, we know for a fact from Sony's financial report from just last year that 50% of their user base was still on the PlayStation 4 at the time. Now, I'm sure that that's shrunk a little bit since then, but clearly there's a lot of people that are still on those consoles. And this is a part of the market that probably likes those yearly popular releases such as Madden and Call of Duty. So Activision isn't going to stop supporting last generation consoles until it's no longer deemed feasible, which clearly that's just not the case right now. Now, I know some fans don't necessarily like that because they view it as holding this generation of consoles back, but the good news here for you all is that if there's any year that could potentially move a lot of those people over to this newer generation of consoles, it would probably be this year with the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. So, yeah, we'll see how that impacts the PS5 and the Xbox Series, hopefully later this year. Now, we also got some new details for Split Fiction. I mean, this game looks absolutely incredible, as is expected from Hazelight. They are lights out, one of the best studios out there, and apparently they nearly doubled Split Fiction's budget after the success of It Takes Two. They confirmed that It Takes Two sold 23 million units, which is absolutely insane to think about. I mean, for one, this is a mandatory cooperative game, so that actually means that we're talking about at least 46 million people who's played It Takes Two, which makes it one of the most played games of all time. It earned that success because it really is an all-time great cooperative game. If you haven't played it, please go check it out. And I can't wait to play Split Fiction, which seems to be cut from the same cloth. In fact, they just confirmed that it'll take anywhere between 12 to 15 hours to complete, which is a similar length to It Takes Two. Split Fiction, though, will release next week on March 6th. All right, so let's go and get into the big news, and we need to talk about what's happening with Monster Hunter Wilds. It just got off to an incredible, and I mean an absolutely incredible, albeit not necessarily perfect start. I'll circle back to that here in just a moment, but first, let's just kind of check this out. Within hours of its launch, it's already eclipsed 1.3 million concurrent players on Steam. So we're not even talking about PlayStation and Xbox, which makes this even crazier. I've actually heard that PlayStation is popping off right now over in Japan. We should see an uptick in PS5 and PS5 Pro consoles sold over the next few weeks. But to put these Steam numbers into perspective, Monster Hunter Wilds is already the 6th highest concurrent peak of all time on Steam, only behind PUBG, Black Myth Wukong, Power World, Counter-Strike 2, and Lost Ark. I mean, that's pretty good company to be in. And one thing that I want to point out here is that 3 of the games that I just mentioned, including Monster Hunter Wilds, released within the last year. I think that kind of goes to show you just how much the PC gaming space is growing right now. I mean, there is a reason that Xbox and PlayStation are pushing into the PC realm. There are a lot of people playing PC gaming right now. But hey, that's for a different topic. What this really tells us about Monster Hunter, though, is just how much this series has grown. Just to keep things into perspective, Monster Hunter World peaked at 334,000 players, and Rise peaked at 231,000. So as crazy as it sounds, Wilds more than doubled those combined within its first 24 hours, which honestly could actually grow even more over the weekend when more people have more free time. So just, again, a monstrous launch. And I know Capcom a week or so back said that pre-orders exceeded their expectations, which honestly kind of surprised me at the time because, this is exactly how I thought its launch was going to be. I mean, this series has always been massive over in Japan. It's been one of the biggest franchises over there, dating all the way back to the PSP days. But when Monster Hunter Worlds launched, that was the moment when this series truly made a name for itself worldwide. And it grew exponentially post-launch. So yeah, I was kind of expecting a big launch for Wilds, and it's really cool to see just how this series has evolved over time. And I think it should be an example for other companies. So often do we see companies give up after the first release of a franchise, but sometimes it just takes time to grow. So big congrats to Capcom and how they turned this formerly Japanese-focused IP to a worldwide powerhouse. Big congrats to them. Now, like I said though, even though it's seeing a lot of success, it is somewhat short-lived on PC for a lot of people because a large portion of players are unfortunately reporting issues. If you look at Steam's user reviews, you'll notice that it has a meager 50% approval rate with nearly 18,000 reviews. Most of the negative reviews are pointing to optimization issues, which isn't the first time that we've seen something like this from a Capcom launch. Just last year, Dragon's Dogma 2 had a very similar launch. Ultimately, it was described as a great game, but just poorly optimized. And that's exactly what we're seeing here on PC as well. Now, the good news is that Capcom tirelessly worked on the optimization of Dragon's Dogma 2 post-release, so hopefully we'll see something similar with Monster Hunter Wilds. I mean, that doesn't necessarily make its launch any less frustrating. I know a lot of people are really looking forward to this game, and for it to launch in this state, not exactly ideal. But what I'll say is that if you have a console as well, that might be the better option for the time being, especially if you have a PlayStation 5 Pro. Reportedly, that is the best option by a large margin, or at least until the PC version gets fixed up. So if anything, the PS5 Pro is starting to show its hefty price with a couple early 2025 standouts. Let me hear in the comments below, though, are you playing Monster Hunter Wilds this weekend? And if so, what do you think about it so far? Now, one last thing before we go. This is a little but still an important story to pay attention to if you are a subscriber to Nintendo Switch Online. For the first time ever on March 28th, Nintendo is delisting a Nintendo Switch Online game. This is for Super Formation Soccer, and for the time being, it only impacts the Japanese version, which brings into question in whether this is because they didn't publish the Japanese version. Nintendo only published this game in America and Europe, but even still, this is the first sign that Switch Online games aren't permanent. And, they can be taken down at any time. So let me just kind of put it this way. Let's say that Superformation Soccer is being taken down because another company owns its publishing rights. That seems plausible. Well, technically, that also begs the question for other non-published Nintendo games. What happens if Sega no longer wants to support Switch Online because they come out with their own subscription service? They have a lot of games on the Switch Online. And then there's also Xbox with games like Banjo and Perfect Dark. I guess they could just kind of take those games down as well if they want to. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is, kind of the downside of a subscription service, which I think most people know that. But up until this point, we hadn't really seen something like this from Nintendo. So at the very least, it is noteworthy going forward, if anything else. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.